Here are the solutions to your Chapter 9 study guide. So the first thing that you're going to be doing is you're going to be factoring. Remember, you got a point for your signs and a point for your answers, so everything should be set into your sets of parentheses. So you always want to check to see if you can factor something out. If you can't, then go ahead and factor it. So here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor this. My last sign is negative, which tells me that I have one of each sign. So I'm going to have x plus and x minus. The middle sign is positive, so it tells me the bigger number is going to be positive. I want my factors of 9 that add to 8, so I'm going to have a positive 9 and a negative 1. Same thing with the next one. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor that. So the last sign's positive, which tells me they're the same, and then they are both negative. My factors of 36 that add to 13 are going to be 4 and 9. And so that one's done. So my next one, I'm going to have one of each sign again, but the bigger factor is going to be negative. My factors of 20 that give me negative 1 are going to be negative 5 and 4. So the next one, I want to go ahead and I want to check to see if I can factor anything out. I can't factor anything out, so I'm going to use slide and divide. So if I do that, I'm going to end up with x squared plus 5x plus 4. I'm going to factor that into x plus and x plus. My factors of 4 that give me 5 are 4 and 1. Because we're doing slide and divide, I'm going to divide by what I slid. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 doesn't go into 1, so I'm going to get 2x plus 1. The next one, I can't factor anything out again. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to slide over. I'm going to get x squared plus 8x plus 12. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to factor that into x plus and x plus. My factors of 12 that add to 8 are 6 and 2. I'm going to divide. Remember that when you're doing this, you need to simplify. So this 6 over 4 reduces to 3 over 2. 2 over 4 reduces to 1/2. They don't go in evenly, so those become my coefficients. So I have 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 1. The next one, I can factor out a 2. So if I divide everything by 2, if it helps you to do that, then do that. But don't forget to put the 2 on the outside of the parentheses or you're going to lose points. So you should have 3x squared plus x minus 2. I can now go ahead and use slide and divide with that. So I'm going to have x squared plus x minus 6. That's going to factor into a plus and a minus. The bigger factor is going to be positive. My factors of 6 that give me 1 are positive 3 and 2. I slid over 3, so I'm going to divide by 3. So I'm going to have 2 times the quantity x plus 1 and 3x minus 2. We're going to do the same thing for the next ones. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to factor out a 5. Everything here is divisible by 5. So I'm going to end up with x squared plus 3x plus 2. That factors into x plus and x plus. Luckily for us, the only factors of 2 are 2 and 1. So we're going to have 2 and 1. The next one, I can factor out a 3x. So again, I'm thinking of dividing each of these by 3x. So if I do that, I'm be left with 2x squared. Remember, we subtract exponents when we multiply, or when we divide rather. And then 3x divided by 3x is 1. Can't do anything else with that, so that's my answer. The next one, I'm going to look and I'm going to say, okay, my signs should be one of each. Do I have any factors of 9 that give me 10 then? If I have one of each, I don't. So this one is not factorable. All right, the next one, the last two are special cases. So remember, if there's something I can multiply by itself to get each of these and there's nothing I can factor out, then it could be a special case. It has to be subtraction though in order to do that. So this is going to factor into x minus 3 and x plus 3. The next one is going to factor into 3x minus 4 and 3x plus 4. Again, it's a special case. Remember, 3x times 3x gives me 9x squared, and 4 times 4 gives me 16. The next one's over here, we're going to go ahead and we are going to make a table. We're going to graph by making a table, and then we have a bunch of things that we need to find. Okay, so the first thing that we always want to do when we're doing these is we want to use negative b over 2a. And remember, negative b just means that you're using the opposite. So b is always the number that is in front of your squared, or in front of your x term. So just as a reminder, it's always ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So, taking a look at this first one, my negative b. So my b here is negative 4. The opposite of negative 4 would be positive 4 over 2 times my a, which is negative 1. So I'm going to get 4 divided by negative 2, which is negative 2. That tells me that my middle number in my table should be negative 2. So if I go ahead and pick numbers on either side, so I'm going to pick negative 1, 0. Think of them as being in order when you're counting. So if I plug in 0, 0 squared is 0. Negative 4 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Negative 1. Be careful when you're plugging these in. Remember, it's telling you to square and then make your number negative. So negative 1 squared is 1. Then I make that negative. So I have negative 1. Negative 1 times 4 is positive 4. So negative 1 plus 4 is going to be 3. 3 minus 1 is going to be 2. If that one's 2, then that one's 2. Same thing with the next one. I'm going to go ahead and plug in negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. Make it negative, so negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. So negative 4 plus 8 is 4. Minus 1 is 3. So now we're going to go ahead and we are going to plot those points. And so if I plot those points, remember side to side first, then up and down. So we're going to have 0, negative 1. We're going to have negative 1, negative 2, negative, oops, sorry about that. We're going to have negative 1, 2. We're going to have negative 2, 3. We're going to have negative 3, 2. And we're going to have negative 4, negative 1. So it should be upside down, and we know that it should be because the a, or the number in front of the square term, is negative. Now we're just going to answer some questions about it. So I'm going to label my axis. My axis is that number that we get from negative b over 2a. So I'm going to get x equals negative 2. My vertex is that center point in our table. So it's going to be negative 2, 3. This is the highest point, so it's a maximum. My domain is all reals. It's always all reals, so there's your gimme point. And my range is going to be y is less than or equal to, because it's upside down, the y value of that point. So it's going to be less than or equal to 3. Let's go ahead and do another one. So I'm going to have negative b over 2a. I don't have a b here, so it's going to be 0. 0 over 2 times 1. 0 divided by anything is 0. So that means 0 is the middle number in my table. So I have 0. I have negative 1, negative 2. I have positive 1, positive 2. 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. If that's 3, then that's 3. 1 squared is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 0 squared is 0. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. We can go ahead, we can plot those points. So we're going to have negative 2, negative 2, 3, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1, 1, 0, and 2, 3. It should be opening up, and that's what we expected. So we're going to go ahead and say our axis, again, is that number that we got when we plugged into negative b over 2a, so x equals 0. My vertex is that middle ordered pair, so it's 0, negative 1. It's the lowest point, so it's a minimum. My domain is all reals. And my range is that y is greater than or equal to the y value, which is negative 1. All right, the last two, we are just going to graph and we're going to find the roots. And so remember, when you're finding the roots, that means that you want to know where it crosses the x-axis. So you might have to plug in some more numbers just in case. So let's start off. We're going to use negative b over 2a. We're still starting off the same way. So my b is negative 2. The opposite would be positive 2 over 2 times 1. So 2 over 2 is 1. That tells me that the middle number in my table is going to be 1. So I might use 0 and negative 1 or 2, 3. So I'm going to plug in. Negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 1 times negative 2 is 2. So 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. If that's 0, then that's 0. If I plug in 0, I'm going to get 0 minus 0 minus 3. So I'm going to get negative 3. If that's negative 3, then that's negative 3. If I plug in 1, 1 squared is 1. 1. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 minus 3. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. If I go ahead and graph this, I have a dot at negative 1, 0. I have a dot at 0, negative 3, 1, negative 4, 2, negative 3, and 3, 0. We can go ahead and we can connect those. It crosses right here. It crosses the x-axis at these 2 points, and the values of those are x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 3. We do the same thing over here, negative b over 2a. So I have negative 4, so the opposite would be positive 4 over 2 times negative 1. 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. So the middle number in my table is going to be negative 2. I could use negative 1, 0. I could use negative 3, negative 4. If I plug in 0, 0 squared is 0 minus 0 plus 5. So I'm going to get 5. If that's 5, then that's 5. If I plug in negative 1 squared is 1. Make it negative is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. So I'm going to get 3 plus 5, which is 8. Negative 2 squared is 4. Make it negative is negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8 plus 5. So we're going to get 4 plus 5 is 9. So if I go ahead and graph this, I'm going to have the ordered pair 0, 5. I have negative 1, 8. I have negative 2, 9. Negative 3, 8. Negative 4, 5. If you notice, this hasn't crossed the x-axis yet, so I need to add some more points. So we're going to go ahead and add some more. So I might add positive 1 and negative 5. So if I plug in 1, I may get 1 squared is 1. Make it negative is negative 1. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 plus 5. If I do that, I'm going to get 0. If that's 0, then this is 0. So these are my added points. So I have 1, 0 and negative 5, 0. If you notice, they're now crossing the x-axis. So I'm going to have x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 1. Let's fix that. And x equals negative 5.